Good morning and welcome. We are all muted as we begin our service together. Let us listen to our music director, David Chapman, play the spiritual "Come and Go With Me."
You're still muted, David. David, you're still muted. Not sure.
David, you're still muted. David, can you hear me? If you can hear me, nod. Okay. You're still muted, David. He knows it.
No one else can unmute you. In the bottom left corner of if you're on a laptop, look in the bottom left corner of the microphone and click on it. We'll try a few things and see.
Hello, Ken. Nice to see you.
David, perhaps you could go out and come in again, or we could just move on.
No, I think we can wait a few more minutes.
Or can the host try Ebony's suggestion? Send an invite him to unmute.
I have already done that several times.
Okay.
Is he on a phone or a laptop? Do we know?
Keith, do you remember we were there yesterday and he may not be connected to the internet?
And he's on a laptop.
He is connected. We see him.
And we had a sound check earlier and it was fine.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I've asked him not to be.
Lynn, why don't we go ahead on to the welcome?
Okay, we can circle back perhaps if he gets unmuted quickly.
Okay. Well, good morning to all, and sorry about the technical difficulties. A special hello to any visitors with us this morning. I'm Susannah Schiller, your worship associate. My pronouns are she and her. I am part of the team that works with service leaders and staff to craft and produce our Zoom services. We strive to be a welcoming congregation. We are from all over. Our families have come from different countries. Among us, we have a range of sexualities, a range of shapes and sizes, appearances and identities. We have differing physical abilities. We have different theologies and philosophies. We've been waiting for you to join us here. And speaking of here, we acknowledge that the land where our church building stands is the ancestral home of the Piscataway people who settled this region thousands of years ago, extending from the Potomac River toward the Chesapeake Bay. Whatever brought you online this morning, we are glad you are here. We are recording on Facebook Live and Zoom. Paint Branch also has a YouTube channel. Your subscription will unlock some additional features for us. Use the link in the chat if you want to subscribe. We invite you to participate from your home in singing while muted, sharing in chalice lighting, and sharing joys and sorrows in the chat. All questions are also welcome in the chat. After the service, we will open breakout rooms for an online coffee hour. To get to know us better, please send your contact info to engagement@pbuuc.org. And now, Reverend Lynn Strauss will call us into worship.
And first we will have our prelude music played by David Chapman. Thank you, David. Thank you, Susannah. Good morning, everyone. I offer these words as our call to worship. The music has already invited us to come together to a land we share. And this morning we share the sacred space of our Sabbath day. And these words by Black Elk, Native American elder and wise man, called the Sacred Hoop. Then I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and round beneath me was the whole hoop of the world. And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell, and I understood more than I saw. For I was seeing in the sacred manner the shape of all things of the spirit, and the shapes as they must live together like one being. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that make one circle, wide as daylight and starlight. And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one mother and one father. And I saw that it was holy. So welcome to worship at Paint Branch Unitarian Universalist congregation this morning. Let us take a moment to unmute and wave and say good morning to everyone else who's here today. And don't forget to scroll through your screen so you can say hi to everyone. Good morning, all.
Morning.
Hello, everyone.
Morning.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hola.
Hola.
Hi.
Hola.
Peace be with
Oh.
you and with yours.
Good to
Thank you all.
Hi.
And now if you will mute
Good morning.
again. I'm going to introduce the hymn, which this morning we will have a recorded hymn with Sherry Mitchell being our song leader. So stay muted, but sing from home. We are aiming for great participation to get back in the practice of participating more actively in our worship so that when we actually do get back together, we'll remember what to do. And singing is one of those things. So sing from home, sing along. The hymn is number 145 as Tranquil Streams.
As tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free, free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed, free from all social code that fails to serve the cause of human need, a freedom that reveals and flow as one to seek the sea. Our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free, free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed, free from all social code that fails to serve the cause of human need, a freedom that reveals.
All right, well, we're having an interesting morning, are we not?
Oh dear.
It's all good. And so Susannah, over to you.
Okay. I apologize for that. Whatever went wrong there, that was actually me, not Carol. Our chalice lighter this morning is Patty DeContis. As a science writer living in Greenbelt, Patty has been a member of Paint Branch since the 1990s. She and I served together on the Board of Trustees in 2010, and I'm excited to say that she's just been elected to the board again. Patty.
Good morning, fellow members and visitors and guests and friends of the congregation. I light this chalice, which is the symbol of our shared faith. And now if you will join me, to recite with your computer muted the unison chalice lighting words. We light the chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. Can you hear me? This is the church of the open mind, the helping hands, the loving heart, and the radiant spirit. Encendamos este cáliz para celebrar el unitarismo universalismo. Esta es la iglesia de la mente abierta, de las manos amigas, del amor del corazón y del espíritu radiante.
Good morning, my good people. I'm Chris McCann, your religious educator, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm glad to be with you for our glorious and tech whimsical flower communion. This morning, let's consider a variety of flowers. I'm waiting for a slide. There we go. There we go. The dandelion. Some call them weeds. I call them beautiful. What other flower, when it goes to seed, is good for making wishes? Then there's the lily, most certainly not a weed and in need of a bit more care than a dandelion. Daisies, my favorite, seem to be designed so simply and they grow abundantly. Often you can spot them growing willy-nilly in a field. The orchid, on the other hand, is more rare and delicate and notoriously challenging to tend. This is the corpse flower. Its name comes from the distinct odor it creates when it blooms. Its blooming is rare, every 7 to 10 years, and despite its stinkiness, people line up in the hundreds at botanical gardens to witness and smell it. The lilac is known for its sweet smell, and its arrival ushers in the summertime. Sunflowers grow tall and strong, known for their rugged stalks and giant blooms. The cineraria is tender and delicate and needs a lot of tender care to grow. Whether hardy like the marigold or slight like the water lily, growing anywhere they care to like a field of wildflowers, or carefully cultivated like these rainbow roses. Stinky or sweet, common or rare, brought together, they create a symphony of color and shape and fragrance, a beautiful, beloved community.
The Unitarian Universalist Flower Communion was originated in 1923 by Dr. Norbert Čapek, founder of the modern Unitarian movement in Czechoslovakia. The Prague congregation grew to over 1,000 members who came from various religious backgrounds and philosophic traditions. Dr. Čapek wanted everyone to feel welcome. And so on the last Sunday before the summer recess of the Unitarian Church in Prague, all the children and adults participated in a flower communion, which gives concrete expression to the humanity-affirming principles of our liberal faith. So how is the flower communion celebrated? Here's what we've done at Paint Branch many times over the past 25 years that I've been here. Each of us was asked to bring a flower of our choice from our gardens or anywhere. When we arrived at church, we placed our own flower in a vase in the foyer. I'm not much of a gardener, so my contribution was always a daffodil. Fortunately, others in the congregation have gorgeous gardens, so we always got wonderful variety. During the service, children brought the vases of flowers to the front of the church, where the flowers were blessed in front of the congregation. The flowers stayed at the front of the church throughout the rest of the service for our viewing pleasure. What could be better than looking out our large picture window at nature during a sermon? Why, enjoying bouquets in front of that lovely view of nature. For those of you who may never have been to our meeting house, this gives you something to look forward to when we start meeting in person again. After the service, each person took a flower, not the one they brought, from the vase. When I got home, I placed it in my own vase on the kitchen table and enjoyed it throughout the week. The symbolism of this ceremony is rich and beautiful. This ritual is meaningful to me for the following reasons. First, we place our own flower in the vase before the service, signifying that we join with others of our own free will. We here at Paint Branch chose to be here with each other today. Second, no two flowers are alike, just as no two people are alike. Each flower is beautiful in its own unique way. Shape, size, color, texture, fragrance, time of the year that it blooms, whether it stands alone or as one of many flowers on a tree, and whether it is an annual or a perennial. Third, when these individual flowers come together, they form a beautiful bouquet. Each flower doesn't have to lose any of its own beauty or uniqueness to contribute to the greater whole. Likewise, our church community would not be the same without each and every one of us. Because each of us brings our unique talents and personality, we make the church community stronger when we're together. And fourth, at the end of the flower communion, we each take someone else's flower home with us. How true that is of our service and coffee hour. Every time I listen to another person, I learn something of value and take it home with me. That person's beauty stays with me into the week, blooming metaphorically on my kitchen table with the flower I received from the flower communion. This year, the flower contributions for our flower communion are in the form of pictures. Enjoy the following slideshow with contributions from over 20 of our members and friends and their gardens, with music from our music director.
Beautiful. Good morning. My name is Lynn Lewison, and I'm a pastoral care associate here at Paint Branch, along with Kathy Bartolomeo and Jim Flaherty. As we gather today, we are carrying life's hurts and joys, great and small. Sharing these joys and sorrows in beloved community can be very helpful. So I invite you to share your joys and sorrows in the chat, and I will lead a meditation after the intonation. And now David Chapman will play Venetian. Oh, sorry. He will play a Venetian boat song by Felix Mendelssohn. Now, let us take a few minutes to acknowledge all that has been shared, as well as those joys and sorrows that remain unshared and yet are on our minds. In this quiet time, may our hearts open to hope and healing, and may our minds open to hope and possibility. May we hold these and one another in love and kindness, so that this congregation may be a source of strength and comfort, courage and hope in the days and weeks ahead.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you to everyone who has brought flowers over the years and to this special time this year. Thank you for all the wonderful music. We are celebrating so much on this wonderful day in the month of June. I think of all the graduates from kindergarten through high school and college and beyond. And I think of all the anniversaries of the season of May and June. And of course, Pride Month. So let us, as we celebrate this service and hear all this wonderful music, hold in our hearts all of the celebrations of the season and all of the hope for the time ahead. Right now, we have some special music. A piece called Crowded Table by Brandi Carlile, Natalie Hemby, and Lori McKenna. A beautiful song about how we long to be together with family and friends. It's sung by Elizabeth Porter and Renee Katz. Please stay muted and listen to this beautiful song. Thank you.
You can hold my hand when you need to let go. I us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done, and bring us back together when the day is done.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so very much. That's so lovely. I happen to have a very large family, and so that song is become kind of a family anthem when we all get together, our 4 kids and our 8 grandkids, and Dave and I add up to 18. So we are excited. A month from now, we will be getting together for the first time in over a year. So I hope all of you are having similar reunions and opportunities to travel and be with folks and family that you have dearly missed. A place for everyone at the table, a place by the fire for everyone. Isn't that what we all want? And I love the image of the table, and one of my favorite poems by Joy Harjo uses the table as a metaphor for the sacred places that we gather. And so think with me now of Paint Branch, whether online or in the meeting house or in the Glen, as your sacred table as I read this poem. Perhaps the world ends here is the title. Joy Harjo. The world begins at a kitchen table. No matter what, we must eat to live. The gifts of the earth are brought and prepared, set on the table. So it has been since creation, and it will go on. We chase chickens and dogs away from it. Babies teethe at the corners, they scrape their knees under it. It is here that children are given instructions on what it means to be human. At this table, we gossip, recall enemies and the ghosts of lovers. Our dreams drink coffee with us as they put their arms around our children. They laugh at us at our poor falling down selves. And as we put ourselves back together again at the table. This table has been a house in the rain, an umbrella in the sun. Wars have begun and ended at the table. It is a place to hide in the shadow of terror and a place to celebrate the terrible victories. We have given birth on this table and have prepared our parents for burial here. At this table, we sing with joy, with sorrow. We pray of suffering and remorse. We give thanks. Perhaps the world will end at the kitchen table while we are laughing and crying, eating of the last sweet bite. Let us not mistake the significance and symbol of congregational life as a table where life begins and ends, and all that happens in between. And I love that image of the crowded table and thinking of Paint Branch congregation as a place where we gather to break bread together. The bread of life that feeds the spirit of all who enter here. One amazing feature of Zoom is that there is room for everyone. Kind of cool. But in real, fully embodied life, technology doesn't save us from our human inclination to exclude, to seek shelter among those who are already friends and family and safe. A friend, someone some of you may know, has a quote at the end of her email, a quote from Shirley Chisholm. Now, some of you young folks may not know who Shirley Chisholm is, I'm not sure. I hope she's still alive. But the quote is, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Shirley Chisholm was the first Black person to seek nomination for President of the United States. And she was a congresswoman elected in 1968. We celebrate, oh wait, I skipped. All right. My purpose this morning is to reclaim the word communion for Unitarian Universalism. I am not a theist, but I love religious language. And I fear we have thrown too many sacred words out with the bathwater of anti-Trinitarianism. What does communion mean in a humanist faith? We know from our years of celebrating water communion and flower communion in our UU congregations, we know that the communion we point to and feel deeply connected to is nature and the interdependent web of life of which we are a part. So water communion and flower communion are very much accepted and celebrated. We celebrate these two UU rituals from a safe distance, however, as we sometimes emphasize the beautiful far-off places where we might have gathered our water, or as we create beautiful bouquets of color and diverse blossoms, but in many of our congregations, fail to take a flower home with us after the service. I appreciate Susannah's emphasis on what it was like for her to take a flower home and have it as a point of meditation throughout the week. But sometimes we forget that last piece of taking church home. It's nice that this year we will have these photos to keep and look at when we miss our paint branch friends. Spiritual growth as a congregation, not just as an individual, requires more of us, more communion and less comfortable distance. In fact, I worry for myself that the distance of quarantine has made me more comfortable being alone. But this communion and coming together isn't just about growth in numbers of members or even numbers of UU congregations nationwide. I'm talking about the deep and profound growth that comes only when we truly see one another and realize the meaning of our seeing. Let me share a story about the experience of an emergency room doctor. This story comes from an article by Rachel Naomi Ramen, R-E-M-E-N, a writer and speaker on personal growth. She writes about Harry, an experienced doctor. He had worked in the emergency room many times before. On this night, a woman was brought in about to give birth. And when he examined her, he realized that her doctor wasn't going to make it in time, that he was going to deliver this baby. Harry liked the technical challenges of being a doctor and was pleased to offer his expertise. And the team in the emergency room swung into action. The baby was born almost immediately. And while the infant was still attached to her mother, Harry laid the infant along his left forearm, you know how you will with a newborn, with the head of the baby in the palm of his hand. And he took his other hand and a suction bulb and began to clear her tiny mouth and nose of mucus. Suddenly, the baby opened her eyes and looked directly at him. In that instant, Harry stepped past all of his training and realized a very simple thing. He was the first human being this baby girl had ever seen. He felt his heart go out to her in welcome from all people everywhere. He realized he represented all people everywhere, and tears came to his eyes. Harry had delivered hundreds of babies and always enjoyed the excitement of making rapid decisions and testing his own competency. But he had never let himself experience the meaning of what he was doing. He hadn't recognized what he was serving with his expertise. In that flash of recognition, he felt years of cynicism and fatigue fall away. And he remembered why he had chosen this work in the first place. All his hard work and personal sacrifice to become a doctor finally seemed worth it. He had been there many times delivering babies and other important life-saving things. He had been there many times as an expert, but never before as a human being. Never before had he felt what it meant to serve the connection to the whole of life. He felt his heart go out to her in welcome from all people everywhere, and tears came to his eyes. Can you think of a time in your life when you felt your heart go out to something, to someone, and you had a sense of belonging to and representing in some way all of humanity, connected to all people everywhere, to all that is alive? Sometimes music or art, drama or love brings us to that place of both timelessness and expansion. A Walt Whitman sense, if you will, that you too contain multitudes. Not multiple versions of yourself, but multitudes of humanity across boundaries of time and place. I'm reminded of the Langston Hughes poem as well, I've Known Rivers. It's one of the readings in our hymn book. It reads, I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bottom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient dusty rivers, and my soul has grown deep like rivers. This is what communion means to me, the deep growing of my soul. I confess I used to have more days of soul awareness. It's been kind of tough to get there lately. But I do remember days when I would just be out driving, around Rockville where I lived at the time. And somehow, for some reason, I'd catch the eye of the driver in an approaching car. Or maybe they had caught my eye, I'm not sure, who knows. But a connection of a minute was made, and that moment, that connection stayed with me. And I returned to it again and again throughout that day. And I began to build a story, and I felt so connected. I have no idea who that person was or how they were feeling. Blackout in the call to worship words this morning called it seeing in the sacred manner the shape of all things of the spirit and the shapes as they must live together like one being. Seeing in the sacred manner the shape of all things. We all live in the midst of life and death every day. We are in community with one another in so many ways. Today, I invite you to enter into communion with one another, into communion with all of life. For we are part of one being, which some call God or spirit, which this morning I am calling humanity. Communion is perhaps most felt, most entered into in those liminal spaces between life and death. As in the emergency room story, the doctor, the baby he met so profoundly, was still attached to her mother, not yet fully born. And those of us who have sat with loved ones or strangers who are dying, we then are in spaces of communion. Any place where your heart opens to another with a sense of profound connection, you can pause there and feel the expansion of your soul, and you can see in the sacred manner how all things are connected. Have I gotten too far away from my subject of a place for everyone, a crowded table of lives connecting? I don't think so. As you watched Ebeth and Renee singing Crowded Table, didn't you feel your heart opening? Didn't you feel yourself entering the space at their table? Didn't you want to stay there listening, smiling, watching them sing to one another forever? They were singing in a sacred manner. They were communing with something much larger than self or even song. What the doctor's story is showing us is that he had thought his work, his service, was all about his expertise, all about knowing the tools of his training and using them well. We've all been there. But what he learned from profound connection to that newborn child was that his work was much more than his expertise. He felt himself expand and become aware that he was representing all of humanity in that moment. He was welcoming that child into the world on behalf of all of us. This is what radical welcoming means within our church. All that we do in service here at Paint Branch is on behalf of humanity and the future of all life. That is why it matters so much. That is why we give our hearts to it and feel these moments of connection so deeply. We can welcome newcomers and each other, not with judgment, not with expertise, but on behalf of all humanity, past, present, and future. Church volunteer work, church participation with open hearts is service. And serving means knowing our humanity is more powerful than our expertise. Our humanity is more meaningful than perfection. Getting it right or wrong doesn't matter. In recognizing the power of our humanity and our profound connection to all that we serve, we are serving sacred community. We are experiencing communion. Our humanity, that is the table to which we invite each other every Sunday and every time we meet, and also inviting those who have not yet arrived. When we know, as the song says, everyone's a little broken and everyone belongs, that is when our soul grows deep as a river. That is a communion of souls where there is space for everyone. May it be so.
Wow. Our next hymn is "Where is Our Holy Church?" David will play through the hymn once, and Sherry Mitchell will sing all 5 verses. Please sing along at home while muted.
Where is our holy church? Where race and class unite as equal persons in the search for beauty, truth, and right. Where is our holy writ? Where is a human heart? A sacred torch of truth has lit, by inspiration taught. Where is our Holy One? A mighty host respond. The people rise in every land to break the captive's bond. Where is our holy land? Within the human soul. Where
Sorry about that, folks. Another recording snafu that I made. Okay, now it is time for the offertory. Our church depends upon the financial support of our members and friends. Please give as generously as you are able. This Sunday's offering can be received as indicated in the chat bar. You can make online donations through Breeze or by text, and you can still mail donations to the church office. The offertory music today is We Are One by Brian Tate.
Thank you so much, David. I'm sure many of us have sung that in a UU choir or heard it sung. So thank you for that. Once we realize that we serve not just ourselves, but humanity, we can live into the admonitions of saints and sages. So our closing words this morning are attributed to Saint Francis of Assisi. Where hate rules, let us bring love. Where sorrow, joy. Let us strive more to comfort others than to be comforted, to understand others than to be understood, to love others than to be loved. For it is in giving that we receive, and in pardoning that we are pardoned. Let us go always in love, taking love out into the world with us. I invite you now to sing again our closing hymn, Spirit of Life, Fuente de Amor. Stay muted, don't forget.
David, you're muted.
And now I extinguish this chalice. Go in peace and enjoy the summer flowers to come.